More active weather ahead. The forecast tonight at 10.
Live from Moscone Convention Center in San Francisco, CBS News coverage of the Democratic National Convention. This portion is sponsored by AT&T. We're reaching out in new directions. And by General Motors. Extra time, extra effort, and attention to every detail. GM is committed to excellence. And now from CBS News Convention headquarters, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening and welcome to our CBS News coverage of one of the connective rituals of our precious American election process, the Democratic National Convention. At the moment, at this big convention hall just behind me, the lights have gone down in order to keep the spotlight on two actors at the podium who are going through some reading about American history. There is some news so far at the convention that consists of the following. First of all, former President Jimmy Carter, who was supposed to speak in not quite ready for prime television time, that is, he had originally been scheduled to speak on this evening at 8:30 Eastern Time before the major network coverage began. Jimmy Carter got himself moved to later in the program and is now scheduled to start speaking about a half hour from now. Secondly, Walter Mondale met this evening with Jesse Jackson and Gary Hart in what he hoped would be a kiss and make-up session, let's all pull together kind of session. We have no report out of that meeting as yet. One report said that it was not scheduled to begin until, about 45, 55 minutes from now. However, one of the great things about covering politics, one of the reasons those of us who do cover politics like to cover it, is the spontaneity of politics. So while that meeting between Mondale, Hart, and Jackson was scheduled to start at around 10 o'clock Eastern Time, who knows when it'll actually start. The key player in the unity meeting, of course, will be Walter Mondale, and Susan Spencer is at Mondale headquarters at the moment. Susan, the meeting's still on for about 55 minutes from now. Has it already started? What's happened?
The meeting is still on, and it hasn't started yet. It should be about, as you say, around 55 minutes. Mondale today called San Francisco the ultimate rumor factory, and as far as this meeting goes, that's certainly been the case. One rumor was thrown at him in a press conference he held about 2 hours ago. That was a rumor that Senator Hart had decided that after he accepted the nomination, he would then withdraw and urge the convention to nominate Mr. Mondale by acclamation. Mr. Mondale looked pleased at that idea. He said, if that's what he wants to talk about, I'll certainly be willing to listen. There's no other indication that that's necessarily true. As for what they really may talk about, Reverend Jackson, in all probability, wants to discuss his grievances still about the runoff primaries. Senator Hart is likely to want to go into the rules changes that he wants and press those a little further. It's interesting to note, I think, Dan, that until now, Mondale has been very reluctant, in fact, has refused to go along with any three-way summit of sorts. But the publicity out of this convention over the last 2 days, as you know, has been Burt Lance and Chuck Manat. Very negative publicity. Any talk of unity is much better for the Mondale campaign to have on the news.
Susan, very quickly, we had a report, Leslie Stahl reported, that Jimmy Carter went personally to Walter Mondale to get his speech moved back in the program so he, Carter, could be certain that he spoke in prime television time. Is that true?
I suspect that is not an unlikely scenario. We haven't confirmed that. Mr. Mondale has been sort of out of pocket for a couple of hours now, but I imagine that President Carter would have found a very sympathetic ear had he made such a request.
Eric Ingberg has been covering Gary Hart. Eric, at Hart headquarters, what are they saying Gary Hart wants to come away from this meeting with Walter Mondale?
Well, the first thing that Gary Hart wants to talk to Walter Mondale about, Dan, is about Gary Hart's campaign debt, which is now estimated at between $3 and $4 million, debts that were racked up during the long and bitter primary season. And Hart wants some assurance from Mondale that Mondale will help him in paying this off. And when you ask the Hart staff, well, how could Mondale help? They say, well, in the routine political ways, joint fundraisers, going out and helping him raise money that would put away this debt, which now kind of hangs like an albatross around the Hart campaign. That is to say, if he doesn't get the nomination. Now, that's the interesting thing, I think, about all this unity talk. There is no mood of let's all pull together here at the Hart headquarters. They are still talking as though they are operating in a live, working, going, running challenge to the Mondale campaign. And they are not conceding that Mondale has the nomination, and they spent the entire day arranging a series of strategic moves designed to prevent Mondale from getting it on the first ballot.
Bob Fall is at Jesse Jackson headquarters. Bob, what does Jesse Jackson want to get out of this unity meeting that we held later on this evening?
Well, I think Danny wants one thing, and that is a symbol that everything he did mattered, that there is a consequence to it. It can take a variety of forms, and in the meantime, it should be stressed that Jesse Jackson is continuing with his own agenda, letting it be known today that he has received an invitation from someone in Russia, will be going to Russia. He met today with the stepdaughter of Soviet dissident Andrei Sakharov. He also dropped a hint that more Cuban political prisoners might be released, all part of Jesse Jackson's moral crusade, which he says will go on even if there's not the kind of unity that he hopes emerges from this meeting.
Bob, stand by for just one moment. Susan Spencer, if you're still monitoring and in the conversation with us, when it comes to Walter Mondale, no doubt he's been watching some of the coverage, or at least gets reports on the coverage. What would you say the single thing that has bothered him most, outside of the Burt Lance, Charles Manat thing, what has bothered him most?
About the overall coverage of
Yes.
in the last few days, nothing has bothered him more than that. That is viewed as, just as the press viewed it, as a terrible fiasco. He was asked today to assess how it all went, and he said, well, I'm here to admit that it was handled terribly, and I'm admitting it because it was handled terribly, and it's obvious to everybody. So that's been a preoccupation for the last 2 days.
Our CBS News coverage of the Democratic National Convention will continue in a moment.
A glimpse of the American presidency from General Motors. The Democrats. Their biggest convention battle was in 1924. 60 men nominated, 103 ballots, and a candidate who lost. 12 years later, they had but one candidate and no ballots at all. Roosevelt was nominated by acclaim. It was the convention all candidates dream of, but it's never happened again.
General Motors sends employees from assembly lines to car dealerships to look at things from the customer's point of view. The finish, the fit, detail after detail. These GM people bring back to the factory first-hand knowledge of how new GM cars are measuring up to our standards and to yours. Nobody sweats the details like GM.
At AT&T, we know you never think about our torture tests.
Yeah, but, it's just a phone.
Or about our extraordinary quality control.
I hear you fine, Mom. Australia's only halfway around the world.